Hey guys, I'm Nitij, and in today's video I will show you how to integrate a personal profile website built in Next.js with a private Google Sheets and use it as a real-time data store. This will enable us to fetch and display real-time data from a Google Sheet directly on our web page without needing user interaction for authentication or redeployment of our application code. The framework that I will be using to build our application is going to be Next.js, where on the server side we will fetch the Google Sheets data, and then using server-side rendering we will serve the entire web page in one go to the client browsers so as to make our profile website optimized for search engines as well. The very first thing you need to do is to create a new account on Google Cloud's console. After you have done that, you need to create a new project. So the project under which I'm working is named as tutorial. After this step, you need to create a new service account. So to do that, open up the left navigation menu and open this identity and admin submenu and then click on service accounts. You will need to create a service account like this one. I have created mine with the name Google Sheets. So what you have to do is click on this create service account button and then name your service account whatever you want to name it. Ideally, it should be related to the task that you want to perform with this service account. So provide a name such as Sheets, and then optionally you can provide a description as well. Click on create and continue. After you have done that, you will need to assign a role to your service account. Now ideally what you can do is you can just provide the editor role to your service account. This should be enough to be able to view and edit your Google Sheets. So after you have done that, you can just click on the continue button and then you can grant access to users for our service account, but to access the Google Sheet you don't really need to do that. So I'm going to cancel this step and then get back to our service accounts because I have already created one with the name Google Sheets. Now there is one more thing that you need to do is when you have created your service account, then you need to open it up and then create a new key in the JSON format. So to do that, just go to this keys tab and then click on this add key button, click on create new key and then select JSON, click on create. After this step, your key is going to be downloaded and then the key which is there in this downloaded JSON file is going to be used in our project. So what is the benefit of using a service account? If you will not use a service account, then to access any kind of data from your Google Sheets, you will have to manually authenticate every single time your application is going to access the Google Sheets. Or if you don't want to do that, then you can also keep your Google Sheets publicly available, but then you run the risk of anyone coming in and then editing your personal profile data. So the best way to approach this problem is to create a Google Sheet and then share it with only the service account's email ID. So the email ID of the service account is this one. You can click on this copy to clipboard button to copy it and then open up your Google Sheets. Click on this share button and then first you need to provide a name to it. So I'm just going to provide the name as profile data and then click on save. Now you can paste your service account's email ID over here and you can decide what kind of access you want to grant to your service account. Ideally it should be viewer, but you can grant the editor access as well. Although it's not like anyone is going to access your service account because you will be using a private key to access your Google Sheets. Now click on send. Now this is everything we need to do to set up our service account and then share our private Google Sheet with the service account's email ID. So this is the Next.js profile website which we are going to integrate with our Google Sheets data. So right now all of this information is hard-coded: the name, summary, the education items, the experiences, all the skills. Now we are going to move this data to our Google Sheets and then we will access the data using the Google API. This is the Next.js project that we will be working on. So notice that we are using app router over here and this is our main page.js file which is serving the home page. There are individual components for sections like personal information, education, experience, skills, etc. Now to be able to fetch data from Google Sheets, we need to first do a couple of things. The first step is to install the dependency for Google APIs. So for that, I will open up a new terminal and then I will run the command npm and then install and then Google APIs. After this step, we need to create an environment file where we are going to store sensitive information such as our Google Sheets ID, our Google's private key, and also the service account's email ID. Now because this env files variables are only going to be visible to the server, there is no risk of their proliferation to the client side or the client browser. So let's create a new .env file, and the first variable is going to be the service account that we are going to be using. Next, let's add the Google private key. Now how do we fetch the Google private key from the JSON file which we have downloaded? To do that, you will simply have to open up your downloaded JSON file and then you will have to copy the private key. So you have to copy this entire value beginning from over here and then all the way up to this end private key. So I'm going to copy and paste the private key for the already created service account. And then finally we need to add the Google Sheets ID over here. So Google Sheets ID is simple to fetch. You will have to open up your Google Sheet where you want to add your profile data, and then the ID is going to be this URL segment after this, spreadsheets /d/ and then copy this entire segment value up to this edit. So hold on, let's just copy it and then paste it as our environment variables value. Now the next thing is going to be to create a module from where we can fetch the Google Sheets data and then extract the profile information separately. So to do that, I will create a new folder under app folder with the name _lib, and then within this folder I will create another folder with the name read sheet, and let's create an index.js file over here as well. Now to fetch the sheets data, first I'm going to import the Google dependency from Google APIs, and then let's create and export a new function with the name get sheets data. So export const get sheets data equals to a new arrow function, and also this is going to be an async function because we are going to fetch the data from the network. So first we need to create an auth object. So const auth equals to, by calling google.auth.googleauth, so new google.auth.googleauth, and then we have to provide some options which are going to be the credentials. The credentials are going to have the client email and the private key, and then we also have to provide the scopes value. So let's first provide the credentials. So credentials are going to be fetched from the environment variables that we just created. So client email is going to be the email ID of our service account. So process.env, let me just copy it from our env file. So hold on, so Google service account email, and then let's copy it over here, and then the next property is going to be the private key. So the private key can also be fetched from the service account. So process.env and then Google private key. So let's just paste it over here. Now we need to replace all the new line characters with double backward slashes with a single backward slash. So for that I will use a simple pattern matching logic. Next we need to provide the value for scopes. So for scopes I'm going to provide the value for an array, and this array is going to have a single item for the scopes value. Now you must be thinking, what is this scopes value that we are using? So scopes is a parameter which is used in OAuth 2.0, which is an authorization framework, and it enables applications to obtain limited access to users' account on an HTTP service. Over here we are using a specific scope URL. This particular scope URL tells the Google OAuth 2.0 authorization server that the application is requesting read-only access to the user's Google Sheets. With this level of access, the application can only read the user's sheets and cannot make any modifications to them. or cannot write anything to the Google Sheets. Next, we need to initialize a new Sheets instance. So const sheets equals to google.sheets, and we need to provide the version over here. So version is going to be version is going to be v4. So v4, and then we need to provide the auth value over here. So for auth, we are just going to call await auth dot get client. So get client is a function call. Next, we need to specify the range from which we need to fetch the data within our Google Sheet. So const range equals to, now let me show you the Google Sheet that we have. So over here, the sheet name is sheet 1, and the range is going to be from A to Z for all the rows. So for this reason, I will be using sheet 1 as the name, and then exclamation mark, and then A:Z. This will simply indicate that we are going to read everything from sheet 1. Now let's fetch the spreadsheet values. For that, I will use a try block. So try, and then const response equals to await. Now response can be fetched from calling sheets dot spreadsheets dot values dot get, and then we need to provide first the spreadsheet ID. Now again, this can be fetched from our environment variable. So let me just copy the variable name. So process.env.google sheet ID, and the property name is going to be spreadsheet ID, and then next we need to provide the range. So the property name is range only, so we can only use the name over here because we have already created a const with that same name. And next we can simply return response.data.values. Now this is in the try block, so we need to provide a catch block as well to handle any errors. So for that, I'm just going to log to the console any kind of error which might occur. So error fetching sheets sheets data, and then error, and then if there is any error, then return an empty array, so that the code which is using this function is not going to be crashed. Now before we add our data to the Google Sheets, let's just test this function first. So to do that, I will open up our page.js file, and then inside this file I will first import the get sheets data function from our read sheet folder. Now we can simply fetch the data by calling const data equals to await get sheets data. Now first let's log to the console our data. So console.log, and then data data is going to be data, and add some test data to our Google Sheet. So for example, test1, test2, and then test3, and then test4. Now I'm doing this to show you the format in which we are getting the Google Sheets data, and using that information we are going to set up and organize the data that we are going to add to the Google Sheets. So I have refreshed the page, and in the terminal you can see the data that we are getting. So we are getting an array of arrays, and each row has its own array within our main array. We are going to use this structure to organize our data. Now how are we going to do that? Now because I have already prepared this data, I'm just going to simply remove this entire content and then paste the data which I have already prepared for our Google Sheets. So over here, every piece of information is arranged row wise. So in the first row we have the name and the summary, and then for each social icon we have individual rows. For each experience item we have each row dedicated to each experience. Similar is the case for education and for all the skills. Now the logic that we are going to use over here is to simply fetch the name and summary from the second row, but then for stuff like the social icons, the experiences, the educations, which can vary and which can be added or removed later on. We are just going to fetch the starting index of the main array and the ending index of the main array, which is going to contain the range of the data. So this logic is going to be used for all of these items, and then depending on this range we will create new objects. So let me show you how we are going to do that. Right now we are simply returning all the values directly, but we can create another function with the name extract data. So const extract data equals to, this is going to accept the data as an argument, and then we can fetch the personal info directly. So const personal info equals to, so name is going to be fetched from data arrays second row's first item, and similarly summary can be fetched from the data arrays second row's second item. Like over here, this is the second row and this is the first item for name and this is the second item for summary. Now to fetch a range of data, we can create pointers for the start and the end. So for example, for experience, we can create pointers with the name exp start and exp end, and let's also create an array for all the experience items, and let's initialize it with an empty array. Now what we can do is we can simply create a while loop with the I pointer. So hold on, while true, this is going to always run, but we need some kind of condition to exit from this while loop, and that condition is the encounter of this end text in any of the rows. So when we will encounter this end marker, then we are going to exit our while loop. So to do that, we can simply check if any of the data's current row and that row array's first item equals to n, then we are simply going to break from this while loop. Otherwise, to fetch the values for the start and end pointers for the experience, we can simply use their tag values. So when we will encounter experience start, like over here in this sheet, let me just zoom it in. Like over here in this sheet, when we will encounter experience start, then we will know that the second row from that row is going to be our start pointer, and when we will encounter experience end, then the previous row is going to be our end pointer. So that is the logic which is being used over here. When the value is experience start, then the start pointer is going to be I plus 2. When it's going to be experience end, then the end pointer is going to be I minus 1. Now similar logic is going to be used for all the other range of items as well. Now how do we fetch the actual values? For that, we will declare another couple of pointers with the name start and end, and for experience we are simply going to use a simple for loop. So we will initialize the start with experience start and end with experience end, and start is going to run all the way up to end, and for each row we will push a new object into our experience array, and each object is going to contain properties for from, to, title and summary. All of these values are in their individual columns over here. So from, to, title and summary, and we just need to map with the correct column like 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. And finally we can just return the personal info as a property of the return object. So let me just copy and paste the entire function because it's going to take too much time to extend this logic for all the different range of sections. So this is how extract data is going to function, but where are we going to use extract data? So we will use extract data over here. We just need to provide the response data values as an argument to this extract data and then return the return values, and we are returning personal info, social icons, experience, education, skills. Alright, now let's use this data in our page.js file. Now I'm going to fetch the individual items from this data by simply destructuring all the individual properties, and then we can provide all of these properties as data prop values for all the section components. So data equals to personal info and then social icons. For this personal info, component, and similarly for education, experience and skills we are providing the data as prop. Now let's open up these individual components. First let's open up personal info, and for personal info I'm going to remove the hard-coded values and then replace them with the destructured values. So personal info, name, summary and then social icons are going to be destructured from the data prop. Let's add the data prop as well, which is this one. I'm going to repeat the process for all the other components and then we will test if our data is displaying correctly in our application or not. So it looks like all the data is there. Now how to test if the integration is working correctly? So to do that I will just change a couple of values. So let's change Jordan Smith to Alex Jones and then refresh our web page. It has now replaced with Alex Jones, and let's add a couple more skills. So I'm going to add 2 new rows to our skills range, and I'm going to add new skills as problem solver and team player. Right now we don't have these 2 skills, and I'm going to refresh the page again. Now you can see that problem solver and team player has appeared. All of this web page is being rendered from this server, so it's good for search engine optimization as well. So this is our document. You can see that this document has all the HTML with all the data, so none of the sections are being rendered on the client side. Everything is being rendered from the server side. So guys, that was all about our tutorial on integrating Google Sheets with a Next.js application. You can further enhance this application by adding helpful metadata information to utilize full SEO related potential of Next.js server-side building of web pages. I hope you found this guide helpful and that it inspires you to create dynamic data-driven applications with ease. If you enjoyed this video and learned something new, then please consider subscribing to this channel. Your support encourages me to keep sharing more tips and tutorials just like this one. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video.